Why, hello there, Jacob. And today, let's go ahead and break down the Minnesota Vikings Week 11 schedule. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, yeah, the Minnesota Vikings will be traveling to Denver, Colorado to take on the Denver Broncos on Sunday Night Football. And I'm not going to lie, this matchup, even about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was wondering why is this going to be on Sunday night? Because, well, let's just say the Broncos, like I say, if you've watched the NFL, pretty much this entire season, you'll understand where we're coming from there. I mean, the Broncos got 70 dumped on them by the Miami Dolphins. And then the Broncos managed to go out there and beat the Chiefs for the first time in like 8 years. So then they started getting a little bit of momentum and stuff like that. And now they're riding a 3-game winning streak. And the Minnesota Vikings are coming off of a 5-piece themselves after starting off 1-4. So I'll tell you what, though, at the beginning of the year or like after week 2 or week 3, if you would have asked me if the Vikings should be on, any sort of night game, I would have looked at you like you were absolutely crazy. But here we are, week 11. The Minnesota Vikings are currently 6-4, and the Denver Broncos are now 4-5, looking to get back to 500. And hey, I mean, like I say, we'll go ahead and jump into this here, but the Vikings have always had an issue beating Russell Wilson. So obviously, enemy number one is Russell Wilson. Because while he isn't the same Russell Wilson that was absolutely torching us in like 2012, 2013, 2014, blah, 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 he's still pretty darn good. And I think finally, for the first time in a while, he actually has some healthy receivers because, good God, Jerry, Jeudy, Cortland, and Sutton and those guys can just never seem to stay healthy if their life depended on it. But when they're healthy, I mean, that you see why they were picked in that 2020, wide receiver class. I mean, they were solid receivers, but it's just, again, your best ability is your availability. So that's going to be one big thing that the Vikings are going to want to keep an eye on is Russell Wilson. Point number 2 that the defense should definitely keep an eye on is that running game. Javonte Williams is, proving that he's really good. Samaje Perine is one of those, journeyman running backs that can get you a few games of 100 yards himself. So, I mean, if they get the running game going and they get, Jerry Jeudy moving and, out in formation and stuff like that, look out. Because if Russell Wilson gets into a rhythm, I mean, he can nickel and dime you up and down the field. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, the defense is going to have their hands full, trying to keep everything in front of them, trying to keep everything, away from danger, pretty much, for lack of a better term there. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup there because, while, again, the Broncos may not have, high-profile weapons as far as, we're not going up against, Jamar Chase or, like a Justin Jefferson or something like that, but they still got enough pieces there that can string together and, basically get the damn thing done. So, I mean, and like I say, they're coming off of a 3-game winning streak, including beating the Chiefs for the first time in 8 seasons. And that's where their confidence just flipped around and away we go. Sometimes it just takes a momentum win like that to get you going. I mean, case in point, the Vikings had that win against the Bears. It was an ugly, sloppy win, and then the next week they took down the 49ers, and away we go, So it's not like there's not capabilities there and stuff like that, but yeah, so like I say, if I'm the Vikings defense, just make sure you keep everything in front of you, know who the weapons are, and, keep glued to them as well. Now, on the flip side, Josh Dobbs, can he keep this up? Can he keep this going? Can we keep this going? Dobbs, ever since he stepped in, has looked money, with the exception of that first drive and a half or 2 drives or whatever you want to say there, he's looked money for the most part. But now with, I don't know how Alexander Madison's looking on the report, if he's going to be in or out or not. Justin Jefferson may or may not be in. I mean, that'll be huge if Justin Jefferson comes back. But even if he isn't back, I still trust Addison, Powell. Hawkinson has stepped up. Again, thank you, buddy. He's really been instrumental these last few weeks, and especially during the win streak. So, I mean, yeah. Basically, Dobbs, just keep doing what you're doing, If you see an opportunity to get 9 or 10 yards and you don't trust your reads, just go ahead and get 4 or 5 yards. There's nothing wrong, I'd much rather see him, take an easy 4, 5, 6 yards that the defense gives him than try to heave-ho to Justin Jefferson, which brings me back to one of my original points and just sort of things from the year. Josh Dobbs coming in when Justin Jefferson was on IR for a hamstring injury might have been one of the best things for Dobbs and the Vikings offense, because it forces you to look at your weapons and not just force feed it to Justin Jefferson, which can very easily happen, especially when you're a young quarterback and you don't quite know, what's going on, and when you literally get thrown to the wolves. So, yeah, like I say, that very easily could have gone south. And we'd be talking about a completely different game here. But instead, we're talking about Dobbs managing the ship a la Case Keenum 2.0, which is another thing that I'm not 100% sure if I agree with. I mean, circumstances are different. This isn't 2017. This is 2023. NFL is a little different. The defense, though, I will say, credit to Brian Flores. Especially with JJ being down and Cousins going down, he basically brought the boys together and said, alrighty, guys, let's step up here. We might have to take the reins a couple weeks here and help out our offense. And they have. Granted, I'd still like to see this team play a full 60 minutes. That's going to be the key. Which team can play that 60 minutes? Because last time we played Denver, remember that game back in 2019? In fact, there's still a video up on the channel, and that's where I coined the phrase "Don't alcohol in Vikings." Oh boy, you want to talk about a roller coaster game that was, because the Broncos were up 20-0 at halftime, and the Vikings came back to win 27-23. So these matchups are always interesting and always intriguing. And we only play the Broncos once every 4 years anyway. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, it's just, kind of wrapping up, and just, key points here and stuff like that are keep Russell Wilson contained. Keep Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine in check. Keep keep Jerry Jeudy from doing Jerry Jeudy things. Force Wilson to beat you. Force Wilson to beat you. And if he beats you, he beats you. But don't give him anything easy. And then Kevin O'Connell. I'm going to say this. Full 60 minutes. Full 60 minutes here, because the offense was great last week against the Saints in the first half. I mean, we dropped 24 points on them. And then we only managed to muster up, a total of 3 more points, almost letting Jameis Winston come back to beat us. So we still got to work on finishing games and stomping on people's throats when the opportunity arises. And also offense, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, honestly, it's been working so far. And if Justin Jefferson comes back, whatever you do, Dobbs, don't force feed him. If it ain't there, it ain't there, please. Granted, if you feel good enough on a 50-50 ball, whatever, that's fine. But just please don't be like, hey, look, there's JJ. He's triple covered. You know what I mean? But meanwhile, Hawkinson or Brandon Powell is like wide open with like a freaking defensive lineman on him. You know what I mean? For like a 10-yard gain. So just, if Justin Jefferson is in, feature him, yes. But don't force feed him if it's not there. You still have other weapons that you can, and then eventually take your chances with the deep bombs. So, And also, please, Greg Joseph, kind of little special teams thing here. Can Joseph keep his momentum going? And can he, just... Because he's been shaky. I mean, ever since he stepped in here, he's been shaky. Extra points have always scared me. 50-plus yard field goals, he's usually pretty good at. I mean, again, though, those aren't chip shots. However, though, in Denver's altitude, I mean, if, a 60-yard field goal is probably the equivalent of like a 50, 55 in a normal stadium. So, field goal range could be, a factor here and all that stuff. So, special teams, so far, I mean, other than, Joseph's shakiness, Ryan Wright's looked pretty good and stuff like that, keep doing your thing. But like I say, we have another big test up ahead of us. I mean, the Broncos, sure, their record might not be the greatest, but this is definitely a different Broncos team than, even 6 weeks ago. So, and again, like I say, 2 teams on long winning streaks, 2 teams seemingly finding their groove, 2 teams who have faced a lot of adversity early on in the season and have done a pretty good job so far. So, should be a fun game. I mean, this night slate, the slate of night games this week kind of, destroys last week's night games because, well, like I say, last night's game was a fun game too. But, there's a lot of key injuries there, especially if you're a Bengals and Ravens fan. And then Monday night is, the rematch of last year's Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Chiefs. So, should be a good weekend of football, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, this is Jacob. Skol. And also stay tuned because, well, I have a couple of pickups upcoming within the next few days or so. Let's just say I've started kind of getting into another part of a collection in my, collection. We'll just put it that way. So stay tuned for that, and I'll explain more when those come in. As well as, like I say, the Wild are also doing their global series. So I don't know if I'll do a video for both of those games or not, but like I say, I got to do a Wild video, probably nothing else next week sometime because yikes. It has not been a good start for the Wild. Well, just leave it at that, and like I say, I'll make a video on that when I make a video on that, probably within the next few days or so. But yeah, that'll wrap it up. So until we meet again, this is Jacob. Have a good one.